Hello, I am Zelmer. I am the author of 6 novels, and today I'm going to talk about writing the first draft. In the previous video, I talked about what you had to do before writing the first draft, was mainly outlining and other thoughts you have to put into it. The time you start the first draft, there's a couple things you should have decided. One is, what is the story about? Title is not necessary. I mean, you can always change your title later on. Just have a working title. Um, you need to know who the main character is, setting, the time it takes place, and most importantly, who is the narrator. Is it first person? Is it third person? That's the two most common um, narrator types. There's second. There's another one that's very rarely used called second narrator, which is you are sitting in a room. It's all you. In fact, I can only think of one novel off the top of my head that actually uses that, and it's very rarely used anymore. Most often it's first or third person. Well, often third person, which is useful if you have a large range of characters. But even third person, you have a few options. You can have third person limited, in which it's only the main character that the reader has insight and access to their thoughts and feelings. There's third person omniscient, as it's called, which you kind of like the reader's above the action and sees everything and knows what all the characters are thinking and feeling. So that's all you need to know before you start the first draft. Now, the most important thing about writing the first draft is figuring out, besides length. I think you should know that before. How long is your novel going to be? Sometimes people don't. Maybe you don't. Absolutely have to have some idea. Most important thing is devoting time to the writing. It doesn't happen overnight. You just need a few hours a day. It's just putting in the work day in, day in, day in, and day. You can do it in the morning if you're a morning person. If you want to wake up like James Patterson did with his first novel, he woke up early, very early, before he was working, I think, in a certain insurance company or something like that. And he woke up early and wrote for a couple hours, and then he went to work. Because most likely, when you write your first novel, you either will be in school or you will be out in the workforce working a regular, 8 hour or 10 hour job, 10 hour a day job. You can either write before you go to work. You should get up early in the morning like James Patterson did, or you can do like I did. I worked second shift. I worked from the 3:30 in the afternoon to like midnight. I'd come home, eat, and then I'd write for a few hours and then go to sleep, go to bed. So this most important time. Also, if you're not willing to sacrifice, if you work a regular, like in the morning to afternoon, evening kind of job, you have to try to eliminate as much of the distractions as you can. One is TV. Biggest distraction is TV. Thanks to, if you have satellite or dish or any kind of like that, you can record your shows. But if you're not willing to sacrifice the time to 1 to 2 to 3 hours a day to write, there's no point in writing. You have to be willing to sacrifice time. That has the most important thing you do that day is to write. And it's got to be the willingness to put in the time, basically, to write every single day. Because easiest thing is the first 50 pages are what is commonly known as is the first easiest to write. It's just setting the story up, but then you have to continue the story. The first novel I wrote is not the first novel I published. The first novel I wrote, and also determine how you're going to write it. Are you going to do you have a computer? You can use like a word processing program, or like a laptop or a desktop. Are you going to go old school and use a typewriter, like a punch umpire or electric typewriter, or even electronic, even last stage of typewriters, electronic typewriters? Or are you going to write it in longhand? First novel I ever wrote, I was 25. Yeah, I was 25. I wasn't quite 26 yet, and I wrote it in longhand on legal pad. I wrote a few pages, like 2 or 3 pages every day. I had no idea how the story was I had an idea about what I wanted the story to be about, and every day I kind of added to it. And I was willing to devote to time, as we, like, I don't want to repeat myself, but I want to emphasize you have to be willing to devote the time to writing. It's not going to happen tonight. Talking about writing or writing about writing, it's not going to write itself. You have to put in the time to write it. And that's the most important thing. Now, if you've outlined it before, you know roughly how the story ends. Or some writers, like Stephen King, says he has no idea how the story. When he starts writing, he has no idea how the story. Some writers like that idea that they're have no preconceived notion about how the story's going to end. They're just going with the characters. Either way, whether you outline it there's another writer I like, James Elroy, who outlines very much before he even starts writing. He writes it all in longhand. It has outlined every scene broken down, and it's a little bit of freedom. And there's some people like thinking that writes just starts with an idea and goes with it. I'm kind of like in the middle. I kind of outline it just to keep myself on track as I write the first draft. So that's my advice about how to write the first draft is to, one, be willing to put in the time, find the time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to write itself. You have to put in the time. And that's the main thing I guess there's two main things. Put in the time and be willing to put in the time to write your first draft. And if you write, maybe the old saying was write a page a day, in a year you got a novel. If you feel like you can write more than that, if you miss a day, try to make up for it. The freedom you have of being a first-time writer is that there's no one expecting it. There's no pressure to produce the novel. You have all the time in the world to produce your first novel. So make it the best one you can. Don't worry about mistakes in your first draft. That's the number one thing. First draft is called the first draft for a reason, because you can go back and edit it over and over and change things. Okay, from my first novel that I published in the middle, first draft to the actual published version, there's many different. I went back and changed things and altered things back and forth, and so there's like many different versions. Don't be worried. You don't have to get it right the first time. Some writers like to polish as they go. My advice to a first-time author is just to get it out. Just finish it. Then you go back and edit it. Most importantly, put the time in. Be willing to put the time in and finish the damn thing. That's it. That's how you write. At least how. Now, advice about how to write the first draft. I can only use myself as an example. I like to listen to music because it kind of cuts me off from everything else. Kind of focuses my mind. I like to have a little something to drink because it relaxes me. Not to get drunk, just get a little buzz or a little tipsy. Just relaxes me enough that it opens up my mind, and then I just follow the characters. The characters kind of take me. I follow them, and they take me to the story. So, sum up. Willing to devote the time. Put in the time. Be willing to put the time. Figure out the optimum setting for you to write. Whether it's with music, without music, in the morning, afternoon, late afternoon, early afternoon, evening, at night before you go to bed. Whatever. Figure out. You have to figure that all out for yourself. And that's how you write your first draft. Thank you very much for your time, and next video I'll talk about the next thing you have to do, which is editing.